evening, friends. Welcome to this session of Talk to Me. Here we start a new series where we discuss with you the problems many of us face in this jet set age and how to overcome these. And we would welcome you to speak also about your experiences and tell us how you also got out of it. This will be an interactive session, friends. So do join and talk to me about. We'll be talking about various issues, social problems, and how to get out of it, and also, in a sense, console each other about how it's not life is not that difficult as we always assume it to be. Because see, if you look at life through my experience, I'm only talking about things through my experience, but all of us undergo a lot of things in our lives that teach us how to become better human beings, how to you know look after your family in the best way that you can. And today we are talking about losing jobs and how you face it. Losing a job can bring a significant level of misery due to the sudden, loss of income, potential feelings of insecurity, damaged self-esteem, disruption to lifestyle, stress about the future, and the emotional kind of feeling that you feel about being a failure. See, many a times in my life, I've always felt that. See, you come to a point where there seems to be nothing in the future, and it could be either when you you lose a job, or when you decide that the job doesn't suit you because you will have some sort of a toxic environment where you don't feel comfortable. There are so many things that happen in a work environment, and you feel that you're not they don't value you. So there are so many hints that you get, like the boss will pass you over promotions, and they'll not offer you any support, or you don't get any feedback about how well you're doing. So all these things make you feel that there is something terribly wrong in the workplace, and you really need to you know do something about it. But then what happens is that you have a job, and if once this job goes, you have a family, children are in school, and you have the rent to pay if it's not your own home. So all these things can put you in a panic mode. And Xperia says, welcome, Xperia. Thank you for joining us. I feel things happen for a reason. There's always something new and better out there for you. Absolutely, Xperia. Because this is exactly what I felt whenever I have been in and out of jobs. When I was working in the Gulf, in Dubai, I found that, see, a lot of the times you're working in an environment that is not really conducive in many ways, because you might have people who are good and you might have people who are mediocre. But I found very early that when I was working with a newspaper in Dubai, I found that mediocrity seemed to be the thing that dominated. That anybody who showed any sort of spark, they would be bullied and made silent, or they would not be given the kind of work that they deserve. And what happens was, by being sidelined, they would tell them that, see, this is how you have to behave, or you you're not going to sort of enjoy your stay here or your work here. So what happens is that in most of the cases, what we worry about, the immediate concern, is of not having a regular income to cover bills and rents and other expenses. And so these things can cause a lot of worry. And of course, then there's also that that way of being socially isolated, because the moment you lose a job, you can feel disconnected from your colleagues and social networks associated with that workplace. And before you know it, once you're home, a lot of the people forget about you. They don't even bother to call you, or ask you how you are, unless they are very, very close to you. And those would be just a handful. So what is it that you actually fear? It is the uncertainty. When you find, you need to find a job that suits you, and with the kind of competitive jobs around, it's very difficult for you to find exactly what you really like. So XPR comes out with, yes, I left my job because I was not happy there. Plus, my appointment arrived for a major operation. So I decided to leave. I took a year out and lived on my savings, and being in UK, I had help from social security. Absolutely. See, when you're in the West, there are certain things that, aspects that actually buffer your fall. But in, countries like India and all, you don't, unless you have a very good family system, a support system. You can also go into depression. And Lena says that keep your ears, eyes open, and mouth shut is what I learned in Dubai when I worked there. Absolutely. Well said, Lena. See, also the thing is that, see, when you're suddenly laid off, it's very difficult to process it emotionally, because you'll keep wondering, like, now what do I do? What do I do next? First of all, it's downright scary. In that particular moment, it looks like everything is bad, but tons of people have survived job loss. Job loss. No matter how bad you are financially, there's always a way out. That's absolutely clear. XPS says, then when I was ready, I started looking for a job. I got it and love it much more than my previous job. There's always hope. Yes, I remember XPS and Lena, that when I left a job, it was mainly because of the fact that, see, I felt that I was educating people who did not have as much knowledge as me in that field. And I decided that I must not, take any sort of arrogance from them, and I needed to, come and do, work as an entrepreneur. And I started my own business in Dubai, in Media City. I started a publishing business, and I realized that, the first year was really tough because there were a lot of people who, did not want to help. But there were also very, very good people who, contributed to your growth. So, as all of you are saying, these sort of, sometimes you feel that scary, but all these movements are to make you a better human being and to give you better opportunities. And Lena says your best friend is only your money. Absolutely. And XP says, I agree with keeping your eyes open and mouth shut at any job. See, when you look, for example, when you're suddenly laid off, and when what you really need to do is to step back from the situation and understand that in, this huge, long voyage of life, these things are going to happen. So the first thing you do is to step aside and take a deep breath and realize that things will get better only if you start looking at it logically and without any emotion. Now, if you feel sad, angry, and you want to cry, all these are just emotions that hit everybody. But try to see the positive side. Go for a walk in the park, work out, go to the gym, or just have your favorite, record playing, or meditate, because the power of meditation is what actually takes you and makes you strong. See, for example, whenever any problem arises, what I normally do is I listen to Lord Shiva's mantras, because I know that none of what is happening in our life is a surprise for him. He has carried us thus far, and he'll continue to carry us safely over every quicksand, every mountain. So if we were to look back at the pitfalls that we have undergone, as we grow older, then all this will give us the strength that, we've been able to go through them and still, come out safe. Yes, you must keep faith that something better is out there for you. And my strongest advice to people is that whichever religion you belong to, please remember that the power of prayer is so strong, because that gives you the strength. Many of us will question others, saying that, see, does God exist at all? So if you don't feel God doesn't exist, but just pray, even if it's for 5 minutes, pray. And you'll see that whenever you're thanking God for whatever you have, even if you're having very, very, frugal things, but if you thank God, you'll see that a slow change happens. Lena says, in Pune, I met a rickshaw driver who had quit his office job. He said there was awful politics at the workplace. Absolutely. There's, usually when it's a very toxic, environment, these are the things that happen. Yes, absolutely. XP, the truth, the power of prayer. Faith can move mountains. I remember, there was another person who said that, when he, a very bright person, when he went to his office, this new office, and he started showing his skills, his superior started feeling intimidated. And they would keep asking him questions, despite the fact that, see, they had a lot of weak points. They were trying to sort of bully him. And that's what happens usually when in certain places they say that, see, my time is more valuable than yours, and sometimes they even say very strange things like, how stupid are you, you're incompetent. So all this is to make you feel rather, little, make you feel small. And this sort of bullying makes you feel as, almost inconsequential. But if you're strong, you'll realize that this sort of environment is not the place for you, and you need to get out as fast as you can. So then what do you do when when you don't have the comfort of being there? So what you do is try to apply for new jobs, and you could always see, before you get a job that suits your qualifications, to just bide the time. Try to get some part-time job. You could do so many things that are there till you find a job that suits your qualifications. And there are many online jobs that you could do just to make sure that by the time you get a job, you're still, you have some money in your hand. So one thing is very clear: the moment you realize that you're out of a job, the first thing that you should really do is to cut down on your expenses and make your budget a little tighter. So Lena says, people have the option to start driving for Uber, Ola, to be self-employed. Absolutely. And Lena, there also a very important thing is something that we learned during COVID is that, earlier people used to say that he doesn't have a job or she doesn't have a job, she's sitting at home. But what COVID taught us was that sitting at home and working from a distance, became the trendy thing, because nobody wanted to get COVID, so everybody was working from home. Suddenly, working from home became fashionable. It's not that exactly it was fashionable. It was the fact that companies were saving on everything else, as in the money, the conveyance, and everything else. So what happened was companies were happy and people were happy because they were closer to their families, and whenever they were free, they could give time to their families. So suddenly, working from home became rather respected. So let me just say, yeah, people have, yes, absolutely. So what you can first do is, if you when you lose a job, is to look for jobs that are whatever you can get in hand. Try it till you find something that is suited. But meanwhile, try to cut down on expenses that you really don't need at that time. It could be anything from subscriptions to channels, or you're paying too much for your cell phone service, or you're eating out too much. You can cut out your restaurant bills or your Swiggy bills. And it's also time to stop spending money on these expenses for a time being, till you get back into track. Basically, any extras need to be put on hold. That means just buying the essentials until you're back on your feet again financially. And please understand that this is all only a temporary period. The moment you are back on track, you can start your life again. I've seen so many people around us who have quit their IT jobs because it was so tiring and they used to travel so far. And they started doing farming, and they started growing organic vegetables, especially vegetables and fruits that were not there, which means they were growing things that we were importing from outside. And it could be anything, it could be exotic fruits and exotic vegetables. What they did was they would buy a certain piece of land, and they would start learning everything, the technique of how to grow these mushrooms, these shiitake mushrooms, and all these very exotic mushrooms, everything that is that people are looking for in a health conscious society. And what happened was, within a short time, they started making lakhs of money. And that also by not working as many hours as they would be working in an IT company. Welcome, Vidya. Always nice to see you. And yes, XPS says, I cut down on my expenses too, use less heating, got a meter for my use of water. I used to pay 67 pounds monthly for water, then only paid 7. Yes, absolutely. So that's a very intelligent way of working, because this is all temporary. Try to understand. In your life's journey, there will be ups and downs, and it is up to you to use your intelligence and your courage to get out of it. Lena says, credit cards have put people in debts. Paying the interest has ruined families and people. Absolutely. So XPS says, I never use a credit card. The only debt I have is my mortgage. And this, I think, in most foreign countries, this is what happens. It is willpower and determination to get over your financial problem. And I've also seen that, in India, a lot of the people have extra space in their house. It could be the garage, it could be a ground floor, or it could be a top floor. So at this time, think of renting it out, renting out the space, and getting that extra money for whatever you need at home. And this will help you to bide the time to before you get a very good job. And it is willpower. Yes, absolutely. And Dina says banks are pushing credit cards. Every bank wants people to get stuck. Lena, when I was in Dubai, I remember the local men there. The bankers used to say that the local boys used to take so much of credit that in the end they did not have any means, because they were not working, and any means of repaying them. So they were caught in this debt trap, and they had to face the consequences, because the parents would also not pay them. So this was a very serious problem, what I saw in UAE. Do you have mortgages in India? Not as yet. There's no such thing. Lena, many people don't want to accept that they have a problem. In fact, a lot of the people have, even when you have extra land, you can always think of, do you need that land at that time when it's appropriate? Try to sell it, and even if you're not getting a very very good price, try to sell it, because that will help bide your time. And you can also sell things that you really don't need at that time, and some of these things will actually make you extra cash. So while you're looking for a full-time job, try to do things like in the West, what people do is they do babysitting, and they wash cars, they clean things. So there are many ways you could bide the time without feeling the pinch. Locals are Arabs, their country helps them. Yes, but if you look at it, Lena, remember the time when these people had a lot of problem, and though they give them jobs, many of them were lazy. And what happened was they preferred that the Asians do their jobs, and they just sit as managers. So what happened was they weren't doing any job as such. They would just make their appearance and they would go. I'm not saying all of them, but some of them. So because they were really spoiled. And Vidya says, this is a recurring phenomenon. Children should be taught about finance from a young age. Invest in bonds and stocks, and take part-time jobs and skills, so they get a steady stream of income when they start work. Yes, absolutely, Vidya. See, what happens earlier in India was that people used to look down at anything, that a boy or a girl would do for extra income, and they would mock them, saying that, see, can't they study, can't they do this? In fact, in my neighborhood, I would often see, young boys walking dogs, and they were paid well for that. And so many other jobs. Some of them would teach them, different things that they learned in college, whether it was giving them home tuitions. So many things were, you are things, whatever your qualities, whatever skills you have, you can use it. Oh, you have to pay cash for a house. You would need a lifetime to pay the amount to buy a lot. Yes, but now loans are very easy. So XPR banks are giving a lot of loans, and these loans are easy to work on. So Lena says, no one will purchase your land. There is too much of headache. Absolutely. This is also another problem in India, because now it's also a fact that Modi ji has made it very easy for people to acquire homes through loans. That land is not fetching you the same kind of price that it would have earlier. So yeah, Jaydev. So if you would like to speak about that, please do chat. And yes. And in Etisalat, Arabs only had jobs, outsiders not allowed. Arabs kept all the top jobs in Dubai. Yes, the locals were very well, looked. Then another very important thing is when you're without a job, tell your well-wishers. Not everybody will be happy to help you, but there'll always be some friends or some relatives who will, when they hear of some sort of vacancy, immediately they will let you know that there is something, why don't you apply there? And Jaidev says, Lena, in Dubai, salary is based on nationality, also in some cases. Yes. And so what you should do is actually spread word that you're on the look for a job. Don't let your self-pride come in the way. Sometimes you feel ashamed to say that you're jobless. But remember, everybody undergoes this phase at some time, some point in their lives. And it's very important to get support from people who really care. And you may don't think that everybody, maybe like the colleagues that you face in your job and trying to cut you. No, there are people who actually care and they would want to help you. See, it's mainly because, sometimes what happens is people hear about jobs being available. And if they know you're looking, they will most likely share the opportunity with you. So depending on their connection, they may even put in a good word. Because what happens in places like India is that they say that influence works. So if that friend of yours or well-wisher, knows other people, it'll become easier for you to get that job. Now, Lena says, in Arab countries, they confiscate your passport, can't change jobs like this one in India. Yes, absolutely. Now, suppose you are, also this, you should treat this sort of, when you lose your job as, time for you to reflect on what is the kind of career that you want. Because this may be the appropriate time for you to change jobs. So learn something online, and see if you can make a change in something you like doing. So many a times, as I said earlier, people give up their jobs to do farming, and they do this with the intention of addressing people who have health concerns. Sometimes, as many people say, losing a job can be, good because you turned towards a direction you were earlier scared of. So consider using this time to do what you always wanted to do. You could always start your business in a small way. There are many people who have started catering, and I've seen a lot of young women, who are very good at baking, and from their home, because you now have Swiggy and all these other things like Zepto, and so what happens is you can have your own little outlet at home where you do your baking, and these things go fresh to people. And you may start off small, but what happens is once you get a good client, through word of mouth, this will spread, and then perhaps you could open an outlet, in an area close to your house. So Vidya says, also if you are having problems in the job, like a bad boss and office politics, don't quit in a huff. Start looking for a job, yes, and then quit. It is easier to get a job when you already have one. This is brilliant advice coming from Vidya, very, very important. Because I remember there was a time when I was very frustrated with my job and I really didn't know what to do because I was so stressed out and my family was not with me. And at that time, I used to, not sleep well. And then, strangely, I got a dream when, my father who had passed away came back and said that, see, why are you, stressing yourself? Is it so important? Is this job so important that you will give your all? Why don't you just quit and see something else? So it's at this point that I started looking simultaneously for a job. And a good friend of mine said that there is, another a magazine that is, working very well. Why don't you join them as an assistant editor? So that's how I moved out. So, Vidya, your advice is absolutely Good. Now, UAE has changed. Previously, you lose your job in the UAE, yes, you would get a 6-month ban. Yeah, India is good, yes. XPS says, I too thought about changing my line of career, but nothing that I could do pay as much as my teaching job for the hours I did. So I just found another teaching job. Well said, XPS. Lena says, yes, take your holiday and search for another job and try it out before quitting. As Vidya said, it is a very, very good piece of advice. There are many times when when you get some part-time job, try to retrain yourself in some form to finally go after a career you've always wanted to do, but never felt it was the right time. Now, what if you constantly try to get a new job and it is not happening? What do you do in such a situation? The truth is, there are times in life when people do everything they absolutely can and still can't seem to find work. So, if you look at India, yes, we are going through such a everything is so inflation is so bad that everything, whatever, for example, some months back, a dozen bananas would cost only 25 rupees, a small type. But now it is costing more than double. It's around 75 rupees. So, without you realizing it, all the prices have gone so high. So, in such a situation, what do you do? Or perhaps you have an illness that prevents you from working, or you can't leave your children at home. You need to take care of your children. So, don't get upset. Do whatever you can in your own way to make up for this. So a lot of the people, what they've done is they've moved to a smaller residence, and given their house for rent, or even you could get rid of your vehicle if you have to, and start lowering your overall living expenses. For some people, they've had to make a very difficult choice of moving from one neighborhood to a place that has lower basic cost of living. If you live in an extremely high cost area and know you won't be working for an extended period of time, this might be a choice that you want to consider. Now, whatever the situation, know that while the initial shock of losing your job can be painful, it can get better and you can be in a better place in your life. As the saying goes, times don't last, but tough people do. You're going to get through this, especially now that you know what to do when you lose your job. So always try to find out, look, at little articles and things where you can sort of improve whatever skills you have. And Lena says farmers are earning well, extremely well. They don't pay taxes and yet cry for more. In fact, another point that you also mentioned, Lena, I found a lot of the people who have left jobs in the Gulf coming here and driving Olas or Ubers. And they seem to be making much more money than what they did when they were in the Middle East. Lena says your investment has to be good to help you out in life. Yes, absolutely. And it's also very important that, I remember like when I was in Iraq, I was in college. And at that time, my father suddenly lost his job. He had a very, very good job. And one day he came home. My mother narrated this to me. And she said that, see, he came back looking very dejected because in Iraq we had a big house and we were also studying in college. So perhaps my father thought that it would affect all of this, and he came back looking rather upset. And then when my mother saw him, she asked him like, "What is troubling him?" And he said, "I've lost my job and I don't know what to do. So I think it's better we pack up and return to India." So what my mother said next was that, okay, so that's not too difficult, is it? So let's start packing and planning, what we should do next. So that's how our journey back to India happened. But my father later, at a later stage, told my mother, see, when you told me something like that, it was like, putting cold water on my head because I felt so relieved that you could share it with me. So it's very important that your family also stand with you when such things happen and think of this only as a temporary phase in your life. See, and yes, and Lena says your investments has to be good to help you out in life. Many a times what happens is there are good friends who are doing very well, and they themselves will help you pull through the situation. So whatever it is, the first thing is to step back and see all this in an objective way and start discussing it with the people you love, and slowly form a plan where you realize that for a time being you need to cut short on certain things and start looking for options. And these options should not need not be permanent ones till you get the job of your choice. And if you really don't get one, try to be an entrepreneur, because there are so many ways of doing a business, small and big, without people are giving you loans, yes, and you could start doing things that you're really good at. Lena says, no, Minaji, friends don't help. Yes, this is the hard fact. Yes, absolutely. Lena, we've all learned this through experience. Support from family is a tremendous help. Absolutely. So these are some of the points that I wanted to discuss, friends. And in the next session, we'll come out with other problems that many of us share. And do join in as you have done today. And let us discuss this and find out ways how we can live life rather peacefully, and also realize that we need peace of mind, prayers, to get through all this. So with this, I end this session. Thank you so much, Lena, for joining in, Expia, and a lot of the other people who are listening in. Thank you so much, Vidya, for your useful comments, and keep joining us. And we'll come out with very, very interesting topics that are troubling our people today, and how we can find solutions to it. Thank you. Good night. Jai Hind and Jai Shri Ram.